What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I wanted to take a look back at South Park: The Stick of Truth. Look, South Park Snow Day released last week. I wanted to get this video up before that, but you know what? I actually think this works out a little bit better because I got a code, I reviewed it, on the main channel. I'm not a big fan. In fact, the more that I think about it, the longer that it's been, I think it is a pretty bad game. A rushed kind of game, a game that, and look, I was ready for it. I knew it was going to be very different than the one behind me, the one we're going to talk about, as well as even Fractured But Whole, right? But I really was disappointed in what Snow Day did. I think it was the wrong direction and kind of a live service-y game. Just, it didn't come packed with content, okay? So I thought, you know what? Actually works out better because let's go back to kind of where this started. There were South Park games, I think, in the very, very late 90s, but it didn't really have the creator's blessing or fan response, good response. This was really the first one, and upon looking it up, I had played it before, but a little bit of the background, history to it, I didn't know, I don't know if I'd say cursed development, but this was a game that was part of the THQ Cell, when they went bankrupt, and took a long time. They pitched this, I think, back in 2009, and they really liked New Vegas, so they were talking to Obsidian for years and years, and they would have extensive meetings, and they worked really, Matt and Trey worked very, very hard to get this game going. And again, like I said, eventually, THQ kind of being the backer and all sorts of money kind of financial problems and who's going to finance it. And then eventually this part of THQ gets sold and the game goes to Ubisoft, who had to rework some things. They weren't thrilled with some of the stuff that came, with this game, and eventually it comes out in 2014. And you know what? It's a really good game. Now, I will say, controversially, even though it's not that controversial, I do think Fractured But Whole is the better game. Okay, I think the second game in this trilogy, because I think they kind of just realized what they had. This one was more of let's just try it. Let's see if we can actually get a South Park game that resembles South Park. And that was a big thing, Matt and Trey were stressing, it's got to have that style. It's got to have the same, animation style. It's got to look like it. It's got to feel like it. And I got to say, they did it. Now, is it a little weak, in terms of maybe the gameplay side of things? Yeah, I think that's where it's at its weakest. But being its own thing, and I guess I say that in terms of being its own story, and especially, and this is why I'm kind of glad, right? Playing it after Snow Day. I suppose it could have worked if I played it before Snow Day as well. What really lacks, I think, with Snow Day, well, the gameplay, I think, does lack, but also the story of Snow Day just comes and goes. It's like a 30-second thing, it really feels like, and it really feels almost like a throwaway episode, just something that they didn't really care about. This, there's some controversy involved. There's some graphic depictions of things happening to the human body. There is things with history going on. There's some pretty crazy stuff that happens in this game, but it feels like a full force thing. This new kid idea, and new kid goes through this game, the next game, and Snow Day, right? You're still the new kid. And I love that. I mean, I really think, or I guess douchebag, sir douchebag, all that stuff. I really think they did such a good job. And what I could really feel playing it now is the care. I really felt the care with these characters, with the story, with, again, this originality. I don't say that as in it's its own new thing because South Park is South Park, right? But it really feels like they said, hey, we're making a game, but we're not going to shortchange it. We're not going to do anything, that it feels like a throwaway thing. We're putting maybe half a decade. It sounds like it was half a decade of development at least, right? We're putting half a decade into this, and we're going to really make it its own thing. And I think they did a really, really good job. This game came out. It sold really well. I think it has a 85 on Metacritic, which is also pretty darn good. So this game really, it was a success, and it was a controversial success. It was a success that took a very, very long time, to actually happen, but I'm really glad it did happen. I mean, for a little personal background, by the way, I'm not even a big South Park guy. Never have been. I don't think I ever will be. I really do like some of the, Cartman. I really like some of the characters and some of the voice acting, and, playing through Stick of Truth, it's I feel like I could watch the show, but I really don't care to. It just doesn't matter to me. But I mean, one thing that immediately stands out, okay, is the comedy. The comedy. Now, again, playing it after Snow Day. Snow Day, I smiled maybe 2 times. I think the opening cutscene, which is being kind of viewed quite a bit and shown around the internet, the opening cutscene of Snow Day is pretty creative, it's funny. It's got some comedy to it. but I don't think I ever outright laughed. I gotta be real. I don't think I ever outright laughed. And Stick of Truth, I was playing it next to my wife, and I can tell you, just in the first couple hours, I laughed 2 or 3 times. And I could tell right then and there, right? Like, it just felt different. And this is, by the way, this is part of the game that I've already played in the past, right? But it's been a very long time since I've played this game. I don't think it's been 10 years, although we are celebrating, the 10-year anniversary of this game and the game that started, I guess, it all. But no, it felt fresh, it felt new, and the comedy really lands, and the originality again, like, of the storylines really lands. And again, it goes for it. Like, it does it pushes things in the way that I think South Park does without even being, a massive fan of the show. And I very much respect it. It's not looking to, like, play political sides. It's not looking for any love from any particular, group or whatever. It really kind of lays it all out there. It's offensive to everybody. It makes its jokes. It's very ambitious, and it just is what it is, right? And you either accept it or you don't. So I have great respect for the show, I guess, but also for this game, because they do the same thing. It is outrageous. It does push it. It's literally about a stick, hidden in a backyard that kind of gets stolen multiple times, throughout the game, and it's just passing it from one group or one character to the next, and you're just looking for it back. And again, the originality of kind of building everything from that, or building it from this, like, mystical kind of thing, which they did continue. Like, it is kind of make-believe. You're not, at least I believe, you're not really murdering these people or whatever, children, I guess, in some senses, when you're going around and fighting. But it's all in the sense of, well, you can pick your class, and you're picking your weapon, and you're picking your abilities. And I think they do a really good job of kind of building it out from, it's gonna be not taking itself too seriously. It is more like mystical or magical. Like, that's the whole kind of backdrop to it. It's all make-believe, and they're just going from there. I think they do a really good job. The characters are phenomenal. Again, the comedy is really good. The look of it, I kind of skimmed by that. If their goal, which, again, it was their goal in the beginning, their goal was it has to look like the show. You nailed it. 10 out of 10. Still, and I kind of forgot about that, where, we talk about art styles quite a bit, actually, even on this channel, right? Always looking for art style. Well, not always. Look, realistic art styles are fine. And some of my favorite, like Uncharted is one of my favorite franchises of all time. Eventually, those games will not look so great. And some games will age better than other games simply because of the art style. So, like, cel-shaded ones, right? Those will always kind of look back. I go back to, like, the Sly Coopers of the world. It takes a lot longer for those games to age than a game, again, like Uncharted or, say, The Last of Us, which is beautiful. Or, like, I mean, we could throw in some Xbox games as well, right? They look really, really good, but eventually that age is going to show. I kind of forgot about, like, well, this is just animation, and this looks like the show, it feels like the show, and it's really hard for that to age as well. Playing Snow Day, and they went from 2D to 3D, right? So now you're in this 3D, more like hack and slash kind of thing. I actually like the visual style of Snow Day, and I also think it would take a little bit for that to get old, too, in terms of the visual style. But going to Stick of Truth, it was really cool and kind of surreal, because 10 years ago, that game could have easily come out right now. The lighting is good, the music is good, the town is good. Like, everything looks really good because you're in this world that is in line, animationally. I don't think that's a word, but, the animation of it is exactly the show. And the show really doesn't age. The game doesn't really age. And so I think playing it was kind of like a shock to me, where, I mean, I know South Park, I know what it looks like, but just kind of watching, whether it's the cutscenes or whether it's the general just going from one store to the next and talking, and the amount of cutscene, by the way, that's in this game, there's a lot. There's a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of, you're going around and you'll talk to a character and it'll bring you to an actual cutscene. It's actually quite impressive, to be honest with you, but it never loses that visual flair. Like, it always looks really, really good. So it was something that I wasn't really thinking of, I guess, like, going into it, but playing it was like, wow, like, if you told me 10 years later, if you told me it came out this year, instead of Snow Day, put Snow Day back 10 years ago, have Stick of Truth come out right now. If you told me it came out right now, I would believe you. I think some of the, again, like I said, some of the other things are a little lacking, but the visual style is not. Now, let's talk about those kind of other things that are a little bit lacking. Well, This isn't lacking, right? In terms of, I would say, the world and the depth to the world, I think is actually really, really good. So again, the amount of buildings or businesses or school or, wherever you want to say, right? The amount of those that you can actually enter and do something with, I actually think is quite good. A lot of them will even spin into side activities, and the game is relatively short. Like going in, I didn't know. I kind of forgot, right? I knew Fractured But Whole was like the longer of the two games. Snow Day, of course, being very, very small or short, I guess, right? But Stick of Truth, if you go through and you're really only doing the main stuff, 10, 11, 12, like it really doesn't take that long to beat it. It's the depth of actually all this other stuff, and that is not, what I would say is lacking about this game. There's really one thing I would say is lacking, but the amount of depth and the amount of you go in, you have a conversation with an employee, suddenly you're doing a side mission for them, and they'll give you, maybe it's like a call-in kind of thing, or maybe it's a weapon or whatever. The amount of depth and the amount of things to do in the game is actually quite large. And again, like, none of it feels cheap. Snow Day, a lot of it feels, maybe not cheap, but it feels rushed. If you told me they made Snow Day in a year, I'd believe you. This game does feel like it took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort, because there's things everywhere, whether it's exploratory things, right? Whether it's things you find in the environment or whatever. There's things everywhere. There's depth everywhere. There's side missions that you can completely ignore. You don't have to do any of them, right? But they're there if you want to, and they have the voice acting, and they have well-written lines, and the dialogue is funny or whatever it might be, right? Like, there was a lot of care involved to it. So that was another thing that I didn't necessarily remember, where it's like, this game is actually like chock full of just like things to do. No, there's one part that's lacking, and it's the combat. Now, I will say this actually with a caveat. I like the combat. Now, I'll say this. I love the combat of Fractured But Whole. Okay, I think it's more in-depth. I don't remember for sure if I feel like it's got more classes. I think this game has like 3. I want to say Butthole has more, but I'm not. It's been 2017, I think, is when that game came out. It's been a while since I've even played that. Don't quote me on that one, but like I said in the beginning of the video, Stick of Truth, I really feel like was just the attempt. Like, let's see if we can tell a game that looks and feels like South Park. And again, with the backing of, like, we kind of want it to be an RPG. We like Fallout. We like New Vegas. Like, we want that. They nailed it for, like, the first attempt and for trying it and putting it out there. And then Fractured But Whole took it and kind of ran with it. And that's why I think it's the better game, right? I think the second one is the better game. One of the main elements of why it's the better game to me is the combat. This is a very simplified, back and forth turn-based thing, but it doesn't have the depth and the strategy, I would say. There is strategy, especially the further you go, the different companions that you have. It definitely has strategy. But you think to the second game, because of the classes, because how you can chain things and where you are, I guess, on like the grid, right? Like it matters. It matters a whole lot more, I would say, than here. Here it is a more simplified or dumbed down kind of style. Again, I actually don't mind it. I think it's not amazing, and it's not something that I think I could play forever. And again, that's why I think the second game is the better game. But it's really solid. I'm a fan of turn-based. I'm a fan of, action-y, more like hack and slash. I'm a fan of any kind of combat system, so long as it kind of makes sense. I like it. There's a little strategy involved. You might have your favorite side character. You might kind of have a go-to move. There's timing involved when you're doing your attacks. There's timing involved when you're blocking. And I've always, we actually did a video on Costume Quest 2 back when in Halloween, which is the best Halloween game, by the way. And I always like turn-based games. Even I think Sea of Stars did this as well. I like games that kind of always keep you in it, and what I mean by that, in some turn-based, right, and actually probably more than not, turn-based, is you press your attack, you do your attack, the enemy does it, so on, right? Just having the little bit where if you nail it at the right time and you're pressing the button at the right time, you do additional damage. If you block at the right time, you will take reduced damage. It's very simple. And again, a lot of games have done it, even historically, and we've seen it more and more as time has gone on. And again, Sea of Stars just did this, last September or whatever it was, right? But I like it for my own personal preference. I prefer that kind of turn-based just because it's a little bit more interactive. I'm more of an interactive guy. I'm always, as you can see with my like upper body, like I'm always moving around, right? I always kind of want to be engaged. So just having something where you're always trying to pay attention and you're always trying to like nail the almost a quick time event, I suppose you could say, right, to it. I like that. So it's a small thing, but it does help the combat. I went as the mage, so more like spells, you know, like the firecracker ability that he can use. I mean, I forgot, you know, customization is a huge thing in this game, which I completely, well, number one, I kind of forgot about. Number two, if you've watched some of my other videos or even other channels, you'll know I'm not really a customization guy. I tend to go with like the default thing. For this one, I actually kind of went crazy. If there was a wacky outfit or beard or hats or glasses or that, I kind of went for it. Maybe not in my like default character. I kind of went for it at times there too, but I really enjoyed it because I'm not really into that stuff. I just don't care. Honestly, it's not like one thing is better than the other. I just really don't care to like get into it too much. But this game has great customization. This game has insane, I guess looks you can do. And, going back, I guess, to end the combat thing, the depth is there in some of the systems when you go, say, into the menu and you're looking at gloves, you're looking at hats, you're looking, there's some strategy there of maybe some will do literal more damage, like a weapon might do more damage, but what kind of buffs or debuffs, kind of come along with it. And that is throughout the entire game. Maybe there's a hat that's slightly better, but it does slightly less, and maybe it gives you a percentage for fire attack or whatever. There's definitely, number one, that's RPG stuff, right? Which I assume they wanted to carry in because of the Fallout thing. I think they did it well. I think that is very in depth. I think that there is lore kind of tied to it. Like they've got their names, they've got their locations where you're finding them. Like there is story depth to it, there's comedy depth to it, there is RPG depth where you're mixing and matching and trying to find the best combination for how you yourself are going to play. It's just when you actually do play, it's pretty simplified. And again, I think the next game does it a whole lot better. But overall, like I said, this game really is a blast. Like I'm glad I played it. I'm happy that I played it because it was kind of a breath of fresh air where at times it actually makes me kind of mad because you think, oh man, you had something. You tried something. You tried something with this game. You nearly perfected it in the second game, and then you just took a hard left and decided, which is fine, and that's actually almost, I respect the decision to say, we want to kind of do something else. The issue is it's just bare bones what you did next, and now that I played that, and then now that I'm playing, or played Stick of Truth, it's like, man, if you just did one more, I don't know, I think what I said in the beginning is probably the biggest compliment I would give this game. The level of care. You can truly tell everybody involved, and Matt and Trey, everybody you can tell really cared about this and wanted it to happen. And you can feel it in the detail with the characters, the writing, the story, the environments, the side characters, the side activities. You can feel they really wanted to make this something special, and you can feel that in the second game. This third game, you really cannot feel that. You feel like it's just a quick, maybe like a cash grab, or how they've talked about it. Well, we can add stuff over time. We can have episodes from the show go into the game. It just doesn't feel like your heart's in it. And that's a nice way. I can go into the live service elements and talk about the negatives there, but I think the way I word it there, that's the nicest way of going at it. I just don't really feel like their heart was in it. I feel like it was maybe too fast. Maybe they only have like a year to 2 years to make this, where this other game, or Stick of Truth, I believe it was supposed to come out in like 2012, maybe 2013, so it did get delayed. I think when Ubisoft bought it, it was delayed by 6 or so months, so it got delayed a few times. Again, there was financial trouble. From start to finish, I guess from when they pitched it to when the game came out, it was 5 years, and even if they were working on the game for, say, 4.5, you can feel that time in the game, because it feels like it's been lived in. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like the care is there, the energy is there, and that's sorely lacking from Snow Day. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want to. We can maybe go back to the very earliest of South Park games. I would eventually like to do a video on Fractured But Whole, but you guys let me know. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.